The ship came out of faster-than-light travel with a gentle shake. Park Tae-ho grabbed the edge of his seat and looked out the window. What he saw made him forget to breathe. The Valari station floated in space like a dream made real. It was built from something that looked like crystal, but it glowed from inside with soft blue and purple light. The station was bigger than any city Tae-ho had ever seen. Thousands of lights moved across its surface, like stars that had decided to live in one place. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Tae-ho turned to see Ambassador Kang Yuna standing in the doorway. She was a small woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back tight. Her eyes were kind but serious. She had been doing this job for 20 years, meeting alien species and making deals that kept humanity safe. Tae-ho was just her assistant. He carried documents, took notes, and tried not to make mistakes. This was his first real mission, and he was terrified. "It's amazing," Tae-ho said. "I've never seen anything like it." "The Valari have been building things in space for 10,000 years, Yuna said. She walked to the window and stood beside him. When humans were still figuring out how to make fire, the Valari were already traveling between stars. Tae-ho swallowed hard. "And we're supposed to impress them?" Yuna smiled. "We're not here to impress them. We're here to survive." She was right. Tae-ho knew the situation. Everyone on Earth knew it. The Krath Collective was coming. They were a species that moved through the galaxy like a disease, taking everything they wanted and destroying everything else. In 50 years, they had eaten through 100 worlds. Now they were heading toward human space. Humanity had ships. Humanity had weapons. But it wasn't enough. They needed friends. They needed the Valari. The problem was that the Valari didn't seem to need anyone. Their ship docked with a soft click. Tae-ho picked up his bag of documents and followed Ambassador Yuna through the airlock. On the other side, a group of Valari waited for them. Tae-ho had seen pictures of the Valari before, but pictures didn't prepare him for the real thing. They were tall, almost 2 meters each. Their skin was pale white, like snow. But it had a shine to it that changed color when they moved. Their eyes were large and dark, with no white part at all. They had no hair. Their faces were beautiful in a strange way, like statues that had come to life. They stood very still. They didn't smile. They didn't move their hands or shift their weight. They just watched. "Ambassador Kang," said one of them. His voice was smooth and cold. "I am Minister Tal. I will guide you during your stay." "Thank you, Minister," Yuna said. She bowed her head slightly. "We are honored to be here." Tae-ho bowed too, copying her exactly. He had studied Valari customs for months. He knew the rules. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make sudden movements. And most important of all, never, ever, touch a Valari. Physical contact was the biggest crime in their culture. The Valari had evolved with extremely sensitive skin. Every touch carried intense sensation for them. Because of this, they had built their entire society around avoiding contact. They didn't shake hands. They didn't hug. They didn't even stand close to each other. Touch was something private. Something that only happened between life partners. And even then, rarely. To touch a Valari without permission was worse than hitting them. It was like reaching into their mind without asking. It was a violation of everything they believed in. Tae-ho kept his hands at his sides and followed the group through the station. The inside was even more beautiful than the outside. The walls curved like waves frozen in time. Light came from everywhere and nowhere. The air smelled clean, like rain on mountains. Other Valari walked past them, always keeping distance, never bumping into each other. It was like watching a dance, where everyone knew the steps. "The Queen will see you tomorrow," Minister Tal said. "Tonight, you will rest. Your rooms have been prepared." "We are grateful," Yuna said. They were led to a set of rooms that were simple but elegant. The bed was soft, The walls glowed with gentle light. A window showed the stars outside. After Minister Tao left, Yuna came to Taeho's room. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Nervous," Taeho admitted. "What if I do something wrong?" Yuna sat down on a chair. "You won't. Just stay calm, stay quiet, and stay close to me. The Queen is different from other leaders I've met. She's been ruling for 300 years. She's seen empires rise and fall. She's smart, she's careful, and she doesn't make decisions quickly. Do you think she'll help us?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. The Valari don't need us. They have ships, weapons, technology that makes ours look like toys. If the Krath come for them, they can probably fight back alone. But an alliance would make both of us stronger. I just have to convince her that humans are worth her time." Taeho nodded. The weight of everything pressed down on him. Back on Earth, billions of people were waiting. Families, children, everyone he had ever known. Their future depended on what happened in the next few days. "Get some sleep," Yuna said. She stood up and walked to the door. "Tomorrow is important." Taeho lay down on the strange alien bed and stared at the ceiling. The light slowly dimmed, as if the room knew he wanted to sleep. Outside the window, stars burned in the darkness. He thought about home. He thought about his mother, who had cried when he left. He thought about his friends, who had joked that he was going to start a war by accident. He had laughed then. Now, it didn't seem funny. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. But his mind kept returning to one thought. If only he had known how impossible that would become. The throne room of Queen Nira was the most impressive place Taeho had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Soft white wisps floating in the open air. The floor was made of something that looked like frozen starlight. Thousands of Valari stood in perfect rows, all of them silent, all of them still. At the far end of the room, on a throne that seemed to grow out of the floor itself, sat the queen. Queen Nira was different from other Valari. She was taller, nearly 2.5 meters. Her skin glowed brighter, shifting through colors like oil on water. Her eyes were the deepest black Taeho had ever seen, but somehow they also seemed to hold light inside them. She wore a simple white dress that moved, even though there was no wind. She was ancient. She was powerful. And she was looking directly at him. Taeho quickly looked down. He was carrying the ceremonial documents, a stack of papers and data tablets that contained humanity's official request for alliance. His hands were sweating. He gripped the documents tighter. Ambassador Yuna walked forward with careful steps. Taeho followed 3 paces behind, exactly as he had practiced. The walk to the throne took almost 5 minutes. The silence was so heavy it felt like weight on his shoulders. Finally, they stopped. Yuna bowed deeply. Taeho did the same. "Queen Nira," Yuna said, "on behalf of the United Earth Coalition, I thank you for receiving us. Humanity comes to you, not as beggars, but as potential partners. We believe that together, our species can face the coming darkness and survive." The queen did not move. She did not blink. For a long moment, she simply watched them with those impossible eyes. Then she spoke. Her voice was like music, if music could also be ice. "Humanity is young," she said. "Your species has been traveling the stars for less than 200 years. The Valari Empire has existed for 15,000. Why should we join hands with children? Why? Well, Yuna didn't hesitate. Because children grow, Your Majesty, and because even the oldest empire can fall if it stands alone. The Krath do not care about age or power. They only care about hunger. They will come for you eventually, just as they will come for us." The queen's head tilted slightly. It was the smallest movement, but in the silent room, it felt huge. "You speak boldly," she said. "I respect that. Very well. Present your documents." We will consider your request. Yuna turned and nodded at Taeho. This was his moment. He had to walk forward, climb the steps to the throne, and place the documents on a small table beside the queen. He took his first step, then his second. The floor beneath his feet was perfectly smooth. Too smooth. On his fourth step, something went wrong. The gravity in the station was slightly different from Earth's gravity, just a tiny bit lighter. Taeho had gotten used to it, or so he thought. But the floor here was made of different material. His foot slipped. He stumbled forward, arms swinging out to catch himself. The documents flew from his hands, scattering across the floor. He heard gasps from the crowd. He saw the steps rushing toward his face. His hand shot out. It found something solid, something warm, something soft. He caught himself. He didn't fall. For 1 second, he felt relief. Then he realized what he was touching. His palm was pressed flat against the queen's back. His fingers were spread across her shoulder blade. He could feel her skin through the thin fabric of her dress. He could feel her warmth. Time stopped. The entire room went completely silent. Not the polite silence from before. This was the silence of horror. This was the silence of 1,000 people watching a man die. Guards rushed forward, pulling weapons that glowed with deadly light. Minister Tal shouted something. Ambassador Yuna's face went white. Taeho pulled his hand back like he had touched fire. He fell to his knees, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. Words tumbled out of his mouth. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Please. I'm sorry." He waited for the pain. He waited for the weapons to fire. He waited for death, but nothing happened. Slowly, he looked up. Queen Nira had not moved. She was still sitting on her throne, but something was different. Her skin was glowing brighter than before. The colors were shifting faster. Blue to purple to silver to gold. Her markings, the patterns that decorated her arms and neck, were pulsing with soft light. Her eyes were wide, not with anger, with something else. Something Taeho couldn't name. "Stop," she said. It was one word, spoken quietly, but it cut through everything. The guards froze. Minister Tal closed his mouth. The room became still again. The queen slowly turned her head to look at Taeho. He was still on his knees, still shaking, still waiting to die. "What was that?" she asked. Taeho blinked. "That sensation. When you touched me." "What was that?" Taeho's mind was blank. "I don't know. I just touched you. I'm so sorry. Human hands, they're warm. And maybe," he was babbling. He knew he was babbling. But the queen was leaning forward now, her dark eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his stomach flip. "Warm," she repeated. The word sounded strange in her mouth, like she was tasting it. Yes, it was warm, but also more. There was pressure, but it didn't hurt. There was movement, but it was gentle. It was like she stopped. For the first time, the ancient queen of the Valari seemed lost for words. Around her, the court waited. Nobody knew what to do. This had never happened before. No one had ever touched the queen. And if they had, they would have been killed instantly. But the queen wasn't ordering executions. She wasn't even angry. She was curious. "Your hand," she said to Taeho. "Show it to me." Taeho raised his trembling hand. The queen studied it like a scientist studying a new discovery. "Humans are warm-blooded," she said. "Your body temperature is higher than ours. And your hands, they have many small receptors for touch. Yes? You use them to feel things, to understand things." "Yes," Taeho whispered. The queen was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that shocked everyone, including herself. "Do it again." Minister Tal stepped forward. "Your Majesty, This is impossible. The law clearly states that any contact with the royal person, I am the law, the Queen said. Her voice was calm but final. And I wish to understand this sensation. Human. Stand up. Touch my hand. Taeho looked at Ambassador Yuna. She nodded slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief. He stood up. His legs felt like water. He walked toward the throne, on shaking feet. The Queen extended her hand. Palm up. Taeho reached out. His fingers touched hers. The Queen's breath caught. Her markings flared bright. And on her face, for the first time in 300 years, there was something that looked almost like a smile. Fascinating, she whispered. Absolutely fascinating. 3 days after the incident in the throne room, Park Taeho sat in a white laboratory while Valari scientists studied his hands like they were the most valuable things in the universe. Please make a fist, said Dr. Vera, the lead scientist. She was shorter than most Valari, with markings on her skin that glowed pale green. Now, open it slowly. Taeho did as she asked. Machines hummed around him, scanning his fingers, measuring his temperature, recording every tiny movement of his muscles. Remarkable, Dr. Vera said. She looked at her data screen with wide eyes. The density of nerve endings in human fingertips is 3 times higher than we estimated. And the natural temperature variation is... She stopped and shook her head, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. For 3 days, Taeho had been poked, scanned, and studied. At first, he had been afraid. The Valari High Council had demanded his death for touching the Queen. They called it the greatest crime in their history. They wanted him executed publicly, painfully, as a warning to all humans. But Queen Nira had refused. Instead, she ordered her scientists to study him. She wanted to understand why his touch had felt so different from anything she had experienced before. The council was furious. But the Queen's word was law. So instead of dying, Taeho became an experiment. Ambassador Yuna visited him every evening. Tonight, she looked tired but hopeful. The council is still angry, she said, sitting across from him in his small room. But they can't do anything, while the Queen protects you. And she seems very interested in keeping you alive. I don't understand any of this, Taeho said. I just touched her by accident. Why is it such a big deal? Yuna leaned forward. Because you gave her something she's never had before. Think about it. Taeho. The Valari evolved to be extremely sensitive to touch. For them, any contact is intense, almost overwhelming. So they built their entire culture around avoiding it. They don't touch each other. They keep distance. Even lovers rarely make physical contact. That sounds lonely, Taeho said. It is. But they don't know any other way. For thousands of years, touch has been something dangerous, something to fear. And then you came along, and you touched their queen, and instead of pain or violation, she felt. What? Taeho asked. What did she feel? Yuna smiled. Warmth, comfort, something humans do without thinking. When we touch each other, we share heat, pressure, small vibrations. We call it simple things like a pat on the back or holding hands. But for the Valari, who have never experienced gentle touch, it's like discovering a new color. The next morning, Dr. Vera called Taeho back to the laboratory. But this time, she wasn't alone. Queen Nira was there. Taeho immediately dropped to his knees. Your Majesty, stand up, the Queen said. Her voice was different now, less cold than before. I did not come here to receive worship. I came to understand. She walked closer to him. The guards around the room tensed, but she waved them back. Dr. Vera has explained the science, the Queen said. Human hands produce heat. They create small vibrations from muscle movement. The pressure they apply is naturally gentle because of your soft skin and flexible joints. All of this combines to create a sensation that is pleasant. Prost. She said the last word carefully, like she wasn't sure it was the right one. But science alone does not explain everything. She continued. When you touched me, there was something else. Something beyond temperature and pressure. What was it? Taeho thought hard. I'm not sure what you mean, Your Majesty. The Queen's markings flickered. When your hand was on my back, I felt safe. I felt like something heavy had been lifted from me. I felt like I was not alone. When you're marking back the my. Also, these are feelings, not physical sensations. Where did they come from? Understanding slowly filled Taeho's mind. Humans call that comfort, he said. When we touch someone, especially when we care about them, we're not just sharing physical contact. We're sharing emotion. We're saying, I'm here. You're not alone. Everything will be okay. The Queen stared at him. You can communicate through touch? Not with words, but with feeling. Yes. A mother holds her child to say, I love you. Friends pat each other on the shoulder to say, good job. People hold hands when they're scared to say, we'll get through this together. It's how humans connect. For a long moment, the Queen was silent. Her markings pulsed slowly, the colors deep and thoughtful. I have ruled for 300 years. She finally said, I have made thousands of decisions. I have sent soldiers to die. I have watched enemies burn. And in all that time, no one has ever comforted me. It is not our way. The Queen must be strong. The Queen must be alone. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Taeho felt something shift in his heart. This ancient, powerful alien wasn't just a queen. She was also a person who had been isolated her entire life, a person who had never known the simple gift of a gentle touch. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand. The guards shouted. Dr. Vera gasped. But the Queen raised her other hand, and everyone stopped. Taeho held her hand gently. He could feel her pulse, fast and strong. He could feel the strange coolness of her skin. But he also felt her fingers slowly close around his. Is this comfort? She asked softly. Yes, Taeho said. This is comfort. They stood like that for several minutes. The Queen's markings slowly shifted to a warm gold color that Dr. Vera had never seen before. When she finally let go, her eyes were wet with something that might have been tears. Thank you, she whispered. Words spread through the station like fire. The Queen had held a human's hand. The Queen had experienced human touch and called it comfort. Other Valari began to whisper, to wonder. What did it feel like? Was it truly pleasant? Could they experience it too? Ambassador Yuna watched all of this with growing excitement. She had come to this station, hoping to negotiate an alliance with logic and mutual benefit. But she had found something much more powerful than logic. She had found a bridge between species. A bridge built not from treaties or technology, but from something as simple as the touch of a hand. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't strength or intelligence. It was warmth. It was the ability to reach out and connect with others. And the Valari, for all their power and age, had never discovered this gift. Until now. Taeho was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything that had happened. 2 weeks had passed since the incident in the throne room. He was still alive, which surprised him every morning. The alliance talks had been put on hold while the Valari studied him. He had become the most famous human in the galaxy, and he wasn't sure if that was a good thing. His door chimed softly. When he opened it, a single guard stood outside. The guard said nothing, only gestured for Taeho to follow. They walked through empty hallways, past sleeping sections and dark gardens, until they reached a part of the station Taeho had never seen before. The Queen's private chambers. The guard stopped at a large door and pressed his hand against it. The door slid open, silently. Enter, said a voice from inside. Taeho walked into a room that was nothing like he expected. The public areas of the station were grand and cold. designed to impress visitors. But this room was small and simple. Soft lights glowed from the walls. Plants grew in corners, their leaves silver and blue. A window showed the stars outside. Queen Nera stood by the window, her back to him. She wore a simple robe instead of her formal dress. Without her crown and ceremony, she looked smaller somehow, more real. "Thank you for coming," she said without turning around. "I know it is late. I know this is unusual. But I needed to speak with you." Away from the court. "Of course, Your Majesty," Taeho said. His voice was nervous. "Please," she said. "When we are alone, call me Nera." She turned to face him. In the soft light, he could see that her markings were dim, pulsing slowly. She looked tired. She looked lonely. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair. She sat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. "I have been queen for 312 years," Nera finally said. "I took the throne when I was young, after my mother died. I have ruled through wars, famines, and plagues. I have made alliances and broken them. I have done everything my people needed me to do." She paused, looking at her hands. "But I have never told anyone what I am about to tell you." Taeho waited. His heart was beating fast. "I am lonely," Nera said. The words came out slowly, like they hurt. "I have been lonely for 300 years. The queen cannot have friends. The queen cannot have companions. The queen must be above everyone else, separate from everyone else. It is our way. It has always been our way." Her markings flickered with a sad blue light. "I have advisors who tell me what to do. I have servants who bring me food. I have guards who protect me. But I have no one who touches me. No one who holds my hand when I am afraid. No one who puts their arm around me when I am sad. I did not even know such things were possible until you fell against me in the throne room." She looked up at him. Her dark eyes were filled with something Taeho had never seen in a Valari before. Vulnerability. "That one touch," she said, "changed everything I believed. For 300 years, I thought isolation was strength. I thought keeping distance was wisdom. But when your hand pressed against my back, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt connected. I felt like I was part of something larger than myself." "That's what humans feel all the time," Taeho said softly. "We touch each other every day. We hug our friends. We hold our children. We shake hands with strangers. It's how we show that we care." Nera leaned forward. "Teach me." "What?" "Teach me about human touch. Teach me your customs. I want to understand this thing that your species does so easily, but that mine has forgotten." Taeho felt the weight of her request. This was the queen of one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. She was asking him, a junior diplomat who carried documents, to teach her something his species learned as babies. "I don't know if I'm the right person," he said. "You are the only person," Nera replied. "You are the first human I have ever touched. You are the first being who has ever shown me comfort. Please, Taeho, help me understand." He couldn't say no. "Okay," he said. "Let's start with something simple." He stood up and walked to her. She watched him with nervous anticipation. He stopped in front of her and held out his hand. "This is called a handshake," he said. "Humans do it when they meet someone new. It's a way of saying, 'Hello, and I trust you' at the same time." Nera reached out. Her hand was cool against his warm palm. He wrapped his fingers around hers and shook gently. "The grip should be firm, but not too tight," he explained. "You look the other person in the eye. It shows respect." Nera practiced the motion several times. Each time, her markings glowed a little brighter. "What else?" she asked, eager like a student with a new subject to learn. Taeho smiled. "There's a lot. Handshakes, high fives, pats on the back, hugs. Each one means something different." For hours, they practiced. Teho showed her how to give a high five, that quick slap of palms that celebrates success. He taught her the pat on the shoulder, the casual touch between friends. He explained the different kinds of hugs. The quick one-armed hug between casual friends. The longer embrace between close companions. Nira absorbed everything with intense focus. She asked questions about when each touch was appropriate, what it meant, how to do it correctly. She made notes in her mind like she was studying for the most important exam of her life. When they finally stopped, the first light of the station's artificial sunrise was glowing through the window. They had talked all night. I never knew, Nira said, her voice full of wonder. I never knew that touch could say so many things. We, Valari, speak with words. We never thought to speak with our hands. Every species has its own gifts, Teho said. Humans are good at connection. Maybe that's our purpose in the universe. Nira looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, carefully, she reached out and put her hand on his shoulder. It was a gesture he had taught her hours ago. A gesture of friendship and support. Thank you, she said. You have given me something precious tonight. You have shown me that I do not have to be alone. They met again the next night. And the night after that, the sessions became a routine, a secret they shared in the quiet hours while the station slept. Word eventually spread, as secrets always do. Some Valari were shocked, others were curious, a few were angry, but something was changing in the station. Other Valari began asking human crew members questions about touch. Some asked for demonstrations. The humans, confused but willing, showed them handshakes and high fives. The change was small at first. A Valari scientist shaking hands with a human engineer. A Valari servant receiving a pat on the back from a human cook. But each touch was a spark. Ambassador Yuna watched it all with growing wonder. She had come here to negotiate an alliance. Instead, she had started a revolution. High Priest Vaughn stood before the Council of Houses, with fury burning in his eyes. His markings glowed an angry red that pulsed with each word he spoke. This is corruption, he declared. This is the destruction of everything our ancestors built. For 10,000 years, the Valari have stood apart. We have been strong because we are separate. We have been pure because we do not touch. And now, because of one clumsy human, our queen has abandoned the sacred ways. The council chamber was filled with the heads of the 12 noble houses. Some nodded at Vaughn's words. Others looked uncertain. A few whispered among themselves. Vaughn was the leader of the traditionalist faction, the Valari who believed that change was always dangerous. He was old, nearly as old as the queen herself, and he had spent centuries guarding the ancient laws. The idea that a human could touch the queen and live was already terrible to him. But the rumors he had heard were even worse. I have received reports, he continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous hiss. The queen meets with the human privately. She allows him to touch her hands. She allows him to put his arms around her in what the humans call an embrace. She is learning their primitive customs and calling them beautiful. Gasps echoed through the chamber. This is not alliance, Vaughn said. This is infection. The humans have poisoned our queen's mind. They have used their strange warmth to cloud her judgment. If we allow this to continue, we will lose everything that makes us Valari. Lord Kas, head of the third house, stood up. What do you propose, High Priest? Vaughn smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I propose that we invoke the ancient right. If the queen has been compromised by outside influence, she is no longer fit to rule. The council can remove her and appoint a regent until a new ruler is chosen. The chamber exploded into arguments. Some houses supported Vaughn immediately. Others protested. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, in her chambers, Queen Nira received the news with a calm face that hid her breaking heart. They want to remove me, she said to Teho, because I have allowed myself to feel something. Teho felt sick. This is my fault. If I hadn't touched you that day, none of this would be happening. No, Nira said firmly. Do not blame yourself. You showed me something I needed to see. The fault lies with me. For hiding it, instead of defending it openly. Ambassador Yuna paced across the room. This is a disaster. If Vaughn takes power, the alliance will never happen. He hates humanity. He'll probably declare war on us, just to prove a point. And the Krath are coming, Teho added. Our long-range sensors detected their fleet last week. They'll reach Valari space in 3 months. Nira closed her eyes. I know. I have known for some time. That is why the alliance matters so much. Together, we could defeat the Krath. Divided, we will all fall. Then fight back, Yuna said. You're the queen. Challenge Vaughn directly. It is not that simple. The ancient right is real. If enough houses support it, even the queen must answer. And Vaughn has been building his coalition for years. He has been waiting for any excuse to remove me. The door chimed. Minister Tal entered, his face grave. Your Majesty, he said. I bring bad news. The council has voted. 7 houses have sided with High Priest Vaughn. They have invoked the ancient right. You must appear before the Grand Assembly tomorrow to answer charges of corruption by foreign influence. Nira's markings dimmed. I see. There is more. The council has ordered the human delegation confined to their quarters. They are to be deported immediately after the hearing. Any human found touching a Valari will be executed. Teho felt cold spread through his body. Everything they had built was crumbling. I understand, Nira said. Her voice was steady, but Teho could see the pain in her eyes. Thank you, Minister. You may go. After Tal left, silence filled the room. Finally, Nira spoke. You should leave. Take your ship and go back to human space. There is nothing more you can do here. No, Teho said. The word surprised him as much as anyone. Teho, this is not your fight. You have already done more than anyone could ask. If you stay, Vaughn will kill you. I don't care. Teho stood up. I didn't come across the galaxy to give up when things got hard. You taught me what courage looks like. Nira, you've ruled alone for 300 years. You've carried the weight of your people without anyone to hold your hand. But you don't have to do that anymore. He reached out and took her hand. Her markings flickered with surprise. I'm staying, he said. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll be there. Ambassador Yuna nodded slowly. So will I. We're all staying. We're matter into the 40 said. We're matter into the 47. 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 Nira looked at them both. Something changed in her eyes. The sadness didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Determination. Very well, she said. If this is to be my last stand as queen, then I will make it one they never forget. That night, Nira didn't sleep. She walked through the royal gardens, thinking about everything that had happened. The moon of the nearby planet cast silver light across the flowers. In the distance, she could see the lights of the station where thousands of Valari lived, worked, and wondered what tomorrow would bring. She thought about her mother, who had ruled before her. She thought about the coronation day, when the crown had been placed on her head and the loneliness had begun. She thought about all the decisions she had made, all the sacrifices, all the nights spent alone, and she thought about Teho, about the warmth of his hand, about the way he looked at her not as a queen, but as a person, about the word comfort and what it meant. The Valari had built their civilization on separation. They had survived because they kept their distance. But survival was not the same as living. Strength was not the same as happiness. Tomorrow, she would face the Grand Assembly. She would face Vaughn and his followers. She would face the judgment of her people. But she would not face it alone. For the first time in 300 years, Queen Nera smiled in the darkness. Not the polite smile of ceremony. A real smile. A human smile. Whatever came next, she was ready. The Grand Assembly Hall was the oldest structure in the Valari Empire. It had been built 15,000 years ago, when the Valari first united under a single ruler. Its walls had witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties. Its floor had been walked by heroes and villains. Today, it would witness something that had never happened before. 10,000 Valari filled the Great Hall. They stood in perfect rows, their markings glowing with tension and anticipation. The heads of all 12 noble houses sat on raised platforms, and at the center of everything, on a simple stone circle, stood High Priest Vaughn. Queen Nera entered through the great doors. She wore white, the color of truth among her people. Her markings were calm and steady. She walked alone, without guards or servants, her head held high. From the shadows near the back of the hall, Taeho watched. Ambassador Yuna stood beside him. They had refused to leave, even though they weren't supposed to be here. A few friendly Valari had helped them sneak in. Whatever happened next, they would witness it. Vaughn stepped forward as the queen reached the center of the hall. "Queen Nera," he said, his voice carrying through the silence. "You stand before the Grand Assembly to answer for your crimes against our people and our sacred ways. You have allowed yourself to be touched by an alien. You have invited this contact to continue. You have abandoned the traditions that have protected us for 10,000 years." Nera said nothing. She simply stood and listened. "The evidence is clear," Vaughn continued. "You have been corrupted by human influence. Your judgment can no longer be trusted. I call upon this assembly to invoke the ancient right and remove you from the throne." A murmur ran through the crowd. The noble houses shifted in their seats. "What do you say in your defense?" Vaughn asked. There was triumph in his voice. He had been waiting for this moment for centuries. Nera looked around the hall. She saw the faces of her people, thousands of them, watching and waiting. She saw fear in some eyes, hope in others, confusion in many. And then she began to speak. "You ask what I have to say," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. "Very well. I will tell you the truth. All of it." She took a breath. 312 years ago, I became your queen. I was young. I was afraid. But I knew my duty. The queen must be strong. The queen must be separate. The queen must never touch or be touched. So I accepted my isolation. I accepted my loneliness. I told myself it was the price of leadership. Her markings began to pulse softly. For 3 centuries, I ruled alone. I made decisions that sent thousands to die. I watched enemies burn and allies fall. I carried the weight of our entire civilization on my shoulders. And in all that time, not once did anyone offer me comfort. Not once did anyone hold my hand. Not once did anyone tell me that I was not alone. The crowd was completely silent now. Even Vaughn seemed caught off guard by her words. "And then," Nera said, "a human fell against me by accident. His hand touched my back. And in that moment, everything I believed about touch was proven wrong." She turned to face the crowd directly. "We have always taught that touch is dangerous. We have always taught that our sensitivity makes physical contact overwhelming, painful, something to avoid. But that is not the whole truth. Yes, we are sensitive. Yes, touch can be intense. But intensity is not always pain. Sometimes, intensity is joy. Sometimes, intensity is connection. Sometimes, intensity is exactly what we need." Vaughn stepped forward. "This is exactly the corruption I warned about. She has been poisoned by human ideas." "Vaughn? No," Nera said, and her voice cut through his like a blade. "I have been awakened by human wisdom. The humans do not touch because they are weak. They touch because they are brave. They are brave enough to need each other. They are brave enough to admit that no one can carry the weight alone. She turned to face Vaughn directly. When was the last time you felt another's warmth, High Priest? When was the last time someone held your hand when you were afraid? When was the last time you were not alone? Vaughn's markings flared red. I do not need such things. I am strong. I am pure. You are empty, Nira said. We are all empty. We have been empty for 10,000 years, and we did not even know it. We built walls around ourselves and called them tradition. We refused connection and called it strength. But look at us now. Look at how we live. Separate from each other. Never touching. Never holding. Never comforting. Is this truly the life our ancestors dreamed of? The crowd began to stir. Valari looked at each other with new eyes. Some of them reached out, almost touching the person next to them, before pulling back. Nira raised her hand and pointed at Vaughn. You call me corrupted. You say I have abandoned our ways. But I say our ways have abandoned us. I say we have forgotten something important, something the humans never lost. The courage to connect. She stepped toward Vaughn. He stepped back. I offer you what the human offered me, she said. I offer you touch. I offer you comfort. I offer you the chance to feel that you are not alone. She extended her hand toward him, palm up. Vaughn stared at it like it was a weapon, his face twisted with disgust. Never, he hissed. I will never lower myself to such primitive behavior. And that was the moment everything changed. The crowd saw it clearly. The Queen, offering connection. The High Priest, refusing in fear. She stood with her hand extended, calm and open. He stood, with his fists clenched, closed, and afraid. It was obvious who was truly strong. Look at him, Nira said softly, but her voice carried through the hall. He is terrified. Not of pain, not of harm, but of connection itself. He would rather be alone forever than risk feeling something real. She lowered her hand and turned to face the assembly. I will not force anyone to change. That is not my way. But I will tell you what I have learned. The humans are not our enemies. They are not trying to corrupt us. They are offering us a gift. A gift our ancestors gave up long ago. The gift of touch. The gift of comfort. The gift of knowing that in this vast, dark universe, we do not have to be alone. The noble houses were whispering among themselves. Lord Cass stood up. I have heard enough, he said. Everyone fell silent. The Queen speaks truth. I have felt alone my entire life. I thought it was normal. I thought it was how we were meant to live. But when she speaks of warmth and comfort and connection, something inside me responds. He stepped down from his platform and walked toward Nira. He stopped in front of her and, with trembling hands, reached out. She took his hand in hers. His markings exploded with color, blues and golds and silvers swirling together. Tears streamed down his face. I never knew, he whispered. I never knew it could feel like this. One by one, other nobles stepped down. They approached the Queen. They touched her hands, her shoulders, each other. The great hall filled with the sound of crying, of laughing, of voices discovering joy for the first time. Vaughn stood alone in the center of the hall, watching his support crumble around him. You have all gone mad, he said. But his voice was weak now. No one was listening. The ancient rite was not invoked. The charges were dismissed. Queen Nira remained on her throne, and from the shadows, Te-Ho watched with tears in his own eyes. He had never imagined that a simple touch could change the universe, but it had. It really had. The signing ceremony took place 1 month after the Grand Assembly. It was held in the same throne room where Te-Ho had first touched the Queen, but the room felt different now, warmer, somehow, more alive. Valari stood closer to each other than they ever had before. Here and there, Te-Ho saw small miracles. a mother holding her child's hand, two friends with their arms around each other's shoulders, an elderly couple sitting close enough that their knees touched. Each touch was careful, gentle, new. But it was happening. Queen Nira sat on her throne, but she was smiling. Not the formal smile of duty, but the real smile that Teho had first seen in her private chambers. Ambassador Yuna stood before her, holding the treaty document. By signing this agreement, Yuna said, the United Earth Coalition and the Valari Empire joined together in alliance. We pledge to defend each other against all threats. We pledge to share knowledge, resources, and friendship. And we pledge to remember that no species stands alone in this universe. She turned and offered the document to the queen. Nira stood and walked down from her throne. She did not take the document. Instead, she extended her hand toward Yuna. Among humans, the queen said, an alliance is sealed with a handshake. I would like to honor that custom. Yuna's eyes widened. Then she smiled and took the queen's hand. The room erupted in cheers. Valari and humans together, celebrating something that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. Teho felt tears on his cheeks, but he didn't bother to wipe them away. Minister Tal approached him during the celebration. I wanted to thank you, Tal said. When you first touched the queen, I thought our world was ending. I was wrong. Our world was beginning. I was just clumsy, Teho said. I didn't mean to start a revolution, Tal smiled. It was the first time Teho had ever seen a Valari smile. The best revolutions are always accidents. You stumbled, and you changed everything. Later that day, Queen Nira issued a formal announcement. She appointed Teho as the first human Valari cultural liaison. His job would be to help Valari learn about human touch and connection, and to help humans understand Valari culture in return. She also announced the construction of what she called warmth halls across the empire. These would be safe spaces where Valari could practice physical connection with each other and with humans. They would have trained teachers who could guide people through the experience of touch, helping them understand the emotions and sensations involved. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. 2 months later, the Krath Collective arrived. Their fleet was massive, a wall of dark ships that blocked out the stars. They had conquered 100 worlds. They came expecting easy prey, 2 species, separate and divided, waiting to be devoured. They found something else entirely. The Allied fleet met them at the edge of Valari space. Human ships flew side by side with Valari ships. Their crews had trained together, eaten together, touched hands and shared stories. They trusted each other in ways that would have been impossible months before. Teho stood on the bridge of the flagship, a Valari battlecruiser named Unity. Queen Nira herself commanded the ship, with Ambassador Yuna at her side. The view screen showed the approaching Krath fleet. Thousands of ships, dark and hungry. They expect us to fight alone, Nira said. They expect us to be afraid of each other, to keep our distance, to fall apart under pressure. She turned to look at Teho. He nodded. Then let's show them what connection really means, he said. The battle was fierce. Krath ships swarmed toward them, weapons firing. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships were damaged, some destroyed. But the Allied fleet held together. Human ships covered Valari ships when their shields failed. Valari weapons protected human vessels from enemy fire. When communication systems broke down, the crews trusted each other to do the right thing. They didn't need words. They had built something deeper than words. In the end, the Krath were pushed back. Not destroyed, not yet, but wounded badly enough that they retreated to lick their wounds. For the first time in 50 years, someone had stopped their advance. The galaxy took notice. Other species sent messages asking about the alliance. They wanted to know how humans and Valari had learned to fight together so effectively. They wanted to know the secret. The secret was simple. They had learned to touch each other. They had learned to trust each other. They had learned that connection was not weakness, but strength. Over the next few years, the alliance grew. Other species joined, drawn by the promise of friendship and mutual support. Humans became known across the galaxy not for their technology or their weapons, but for their warmth. They were the species that reached out. They were the species that brought others together. And at the center of it all was a simple story. A young diplomat who stumbled and touched a queen, and a queen who was brave enough to say she enjoyed it. Years later, when historians wrote about this period, they called it the Great Awakening. They traced it back to one moment in a throne room. One accidental touch that changed everything. Tejo never took credit for it. He always said he was just clumsy. But everyone knew the truth. Sometimes, the most important moments in history aren't planned. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are ordinary people who do small things with great love. Sometimes, all it takes to change the universe is the courage to reach out and touch someone. In her chambers, now filled with gifts from a dozen allied worlds, Queen Nira kept a small painting that Tejo had given her. It showed two hands reaching toward each other across a field of stars. Beneath it, a human phrase was written in both English and Valari script. It said, "No one walks alone." Every morning, Nira looked at that painting and remembered. She remembered the loneliness of 300 years. She remembered the shock of a warm hand on her back. She remembered the first time someone held her hand and told her it would be okay. She had been queen for so long. She had been strong and separate, and alone for so long. But now, finally, she understood what true strength was. It wasn't standing apart from others. It was standing together. And as she looked out at the stars, at the alliance she had helped build, at the universe they would explore together, she smiled. Not the smile of a queen, the smile of a friend, the smile of someone who finally knew she was not alone. And somewhere across the galaxy, the Krath waited. They would come again. Eventually. They always did. But when they came, they would find something they had never faced before. A galaxy united not by fear, but by love. Not by force, but by friendship. Not by walls that kept others out, but by hands that reached out and held on tight. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift. The gift of warmth, the gift of touch, the gift of connection, and the galaxy would never be the same.